Good morning, welcome to Fairy and Spoil. I'm going to talk to you today about how to deal with a terrified dog. So we've had a really awful weekend. It's been really horrible and it's involving Humps here. So we've had Humps for a year now, and when he first came to us, so really terrible abuse case from South Korea. When he first came to us, if he went to the toilet, he would straight away drink up his piddle really quickly, so there was no piddle left, no trace of it. And when he went to the other toilet, he would try to bury it really quickly. And because where they go to toilet in our garden is just pavement, not pavement, patio, he would try to dig it, try and hide it with his nose, which wasn't good at all because it was scratching his nose. Now I managed to get over that by every time he went to toilet, clapped and celebrated and gave him a treat. And he got over that. It took a bit of work, but he got over it and understood that he could go to toilet and he didn't have to panic about it. Then at the weekend, so in the year that we've had him, he's never had any tummy upsets or diarrhea or anything like that. At the weekend, on Friday night, we came down and I knew, right, so Hump sleeps downstairs, not because he has to, but because he chooses to sleep on this sofa rather than on a crowded bed. Because as you can see, I've got 3 dogs. So he sleeps down here. So I came down the stairs, and normally when I come down the stairs, he's still fast asleep on the sofa and he wakes up slowly as we come down the stairs. When I came down the stairs, as you can see, he's doing all right now. When I came down the stairs, he was at the bottom of the stairs and his eyes were all big and he looked terrified. And so I said to my other dogs and my husband, stay there, something's wrong. So I went down, and when I got downstairs, I saw that, exactly where I'm sitting and all over this carpet and all over the floor, he had been sick and diarrhea and peed. It was just everywhere, absolute mess. Just loads of sick, and it was a real mess. And he looked absolutely terrified. So my first thought was, okay, he's reverted back to form. So when he used to do that thing when he went to toilet, that was a year ago. I thought, okay, being this ill indoors has triggered him. So clearly, from the way he used to behave when he went to toilet, I'd worked out and spoken to the people at the rescue centre, and we'd all agreed that at some point in his life he's been beaten badly for going to the toilet, and not just in the house, but maybe just, I don't exactly know where, but we all agreed that he's been beaten for, and the way he reacted to it, it's not just like someone's been telling him off. This is someone's been beating him. So we all kind of agreed on that is why he was doing that behaviour. So when he was really ill and sick, I thought, okay, he's reverted back to form. He thinks he's going to get beaten for the mess that he's made in the sitting room. And even though he's been with us for a year and we are bonded and, oh goodness, we love each other so much, he clearly just reverted back to form. And because he'd never been ill with us before, he didn't know how we were going to react. And obviously, we were very kind and loving and all of that. So we came down the stairs and he just looked so scared and so anxious. So I just sat on the floor and talked to him. And he seemed to calm down. Not completely, but he did seem to calm down a bit. But there was a lot of pacing and backwards and forwards and pacing. And it was clearly very anxious. So I let him out into the back garden, and he went to toilet again and was absolutely beside himself, desperate, trying to clear it up. So what I did was I just sort of dived in there and cleared it up, like before he could carry on with it. And he then we've got a part in our garden where we call it the meadow, which is ridiculous because it's about 1 metre by 1 metre, but in my little brain I've got a meadow. And when Humps came, he started to dig a hole there. So I just gave up with the meadow idea and just let him have it to dig his hole. He went into that area and started digging, absolutely frantic digging. It was pitch black. It was early in the morning. Frantic digging and making this sound that I've never heard come out of a dog. And in all my years of dog ownership, like 25 years or whatever, I've heard a lot of sounds. I've never heard a sound like this. It came from his guts, absolutely from deep within, and it was chilling, this sound, and it was so loud, really loud. And I thought, the neighbours are going to be wondering what's happening. It sounded like I can't explain it. It was awful. absolutely awful. So this awful sound and digging, like he dug the biggest hole. I thought, he's dying. You got some stuff in your mouth, darling. I thought, he's dying and he's digging a hole to die. And I said to my husband, we need a vet, and we need a vet fast. I need a vet. Phone our vets up and tell them they have to come to the house, and they have to come now. Because I thought he was in absolute agony and that he was dying and that he was digging this hole to dying. In the meantime, my husband stayed in the kitchen and he Googled it, and it said that it was terror, which makes sense, because then my logical brain kicked in, and I thought, you wouldn't, if the pain was from being in agony, you wouldn't be digging like that, because digging is going to make the pain a lot worse. You might be pacing, might possibly be doing the crying, but he wouldn't be digging that crazy, because that would make the pain so much worse. So I thought to myself, okay, he's not in pain, he's anxious. So when I thought he was in pain, I kept back a little bit, because I wasn't quite sure if he would, how he would respond. But once I thought it was anxiety, I just went down onto my knees about 3 feet away from him. Now, in this whole process, so I had, when we first came downstairs, I fed my other dogs. And in that process, my husband made me a piece of toast, because we thought if we just got on like normal, he would relax, and he didn't. So I was still holding my piece of toast in the hand. And throughout all this, I never let go of my piece of toast. As I kneeled down to him, he got a whiff of the piece of toast, and it was like magic. It snapped him out of it. It snapped him back into reality. So he came back into being with me. So he kind of, up to that point, when he had this sort of terror attack, he kind of completely lost the plot. And he didn't, I don't think he knew where he was. I think he completely lost the plot. And he didn't know where he was. But that piece of toast, the smell of the piece of toast, brought him right back to me. He came right back to me, and it was like a switch went off, and he stopped crying, and he stopped moving, and he just sat there. His whole demeanour changed, his whole face changed, it all just changed. And I don't give my dogs any toast, but I did, and I gave him some toast, and he ate it, which was really surprising, because an anxious dog won't eat. And if you can get a dog to eat, you activate a part of their brain that calms them down. So I gave him a big piece of the toast, and he chewed it and chewed it and chewed it, and I could see him just releasing all the terror and just calming down. And I could see that he just calmed it all down, and he just lay down on the floor, and he just quietly just calmed it all down. And I was stroking him, and he was all calm and all quiet, and it all just calmed down, and it just stopped. And then he came back into the house, completely quiet, no noise, no nothing, just nice and quiet and nice and calm. And so I then phoned the lady so we got him from the dog team UK. They rescue dogs from Korea. And so Louise, a wonderful lady who owns it, I phoned her, and I told her, because I wanted to make sure that was anxiety and it wasn't pain, because if it was pain, then I needed a vet. So she said, no, that is anxiety. Like, not even anxiety, it's worse than that. It's like terror, like a terror attack where they're not thinking straight. And I was right, he wasn't in the garden with me, he was somewhere awful being beaten. And she said no, she was 100% sure that it was anxiety and that he wasn't in pain. And I agreed with it, because of the way, like I said, what I've just said. So I wasn't going to take, we were about to go on our walk, that would have been our time to go on our walk, and I wasn't actually going to go. But she said, no, go for the walk, just snip, because we have such a set routine. She said, just slip straight back into your routine. So we went for the walk, and we were prepared for him to do a bad sort of diarrhea on the walk, so we had all the stuff with us to clear it up properly. And he did, but he really enjoyed it. It wasn't a long walk, it was a shortened walk, and I sort of kept going in circles around the house so that I could get back quickly. And he really enjoyed himself on the walk, and it was fine. And the rest of the day, you wouldn't even have known that anything had happened. So he had no more diarrhea, no more sickness, no more anxiety. He was, as you would imagine, exhausted. So I cancelled plans for the day, and we just sat on the sofa all day and watched films, and he just cuddled up with me all day and slept. But there was no illness, there was nothing. So I thought, oh, it's all over. This was really, really naive of me, because I've had dogs for long enough to know that if they get a real bad sickness bug, you're looking at 2 days. So that night I was thinking he might not want to sleep down here on his own, because he's going to be worried about what had happened. I thought he might feel anxious about it. So, but he knows he can come upstairs, and sometimes he does come upstairs and sleep upstairs, but he'll always go back down. He doesn't stay there because it's just too crowded with, you know, all of us in the bed. So, but he didn't. He stayed down here that like the next night. So I came down the next morning just thinking life was normal, and then looked into the sitting room and there was just sick and poo, and it was all over the place. It all happened again. But he didn't seem anxious, so he was acting like normal. So he was still on the sofa asleep just like normal, and then he wakes up and sort of poodles over to us when he wakes up. But I immediately thought, oh my goodness, is he going to go back into the garden and do that thing again? And so I was trying really hard to keep my energy calm, but I was inside, I was very worried. So I just went into a normal routine. So the first thing I do is feed my boys. I feed them all. I go and get showered and ready. So they've got an hour between feeding and walking, and that's just my routine. And he just slipped straight into routine. There was no anxiety, there was nothing. No anxiety at all, nothing. He just slipped straight into the routine. Are you all right, Pickle Boy? Harry looks so tired. You're just lying there watching us half asleep. You're not going to be awake for much longer, are you? You're falling asleep. Can you see Albert over there? If you don't know, I've got a little Albert. I've got a little white dog at the back there against the pillows. I don't know if you can see him. So he was completely normal. And so I thought, wow, that was incredible, because that one night taught him that if you're ill in this house, it doesn't matter. And not only does it not matter, you know, you're not going to get beaten, you're not going to get shouted at. You're just loved, and kindness is all over you. And he learnt that in one night. In one night, he learnt that even though he had been sick and everything all over the place again, it didn't matter, and we wouldn't. And I thought that was really incredible, that he learnt that so quickly. I thought that was really, really incredible that he learnt it so quickly. And I was so happy for him, so happy. And that day was one of the days when we, so you can, in the UK, you pay. So you, like, people have fields and they basically fence them all off, put nice agility stuff in it and that a lot, and then you pay, and it's just you and your dogs in the field, no one else. And we had hired a particularly nice one of that, and so we took him there. He was running around the field and having a lovely time, and you know, you wouldn't have known anything had ever happened. So although it was an incredibly traumatic experience for all of us, at the end of the weekend we've come to the point where he now knows that if he's that ill, he never has to panic about it. There's nothing to panic about, and that's really incredible. So the things I just want to point out is, as I always go on about my energy with dogs is all you've got. You can't really, well, I do talk to my dogs all the time and they understand a lot of it, but basically you've got your energy. If I had panicked, don't kid me, inside I was very panicked, but I managed to pull myself together very quickly. You know, I've talked about it so much, your energy with dogs, I've talked about it endlessly, and it's really all you've got. And so the first thing is that I stayed really calm. I worked really hard. And when he was doing the stuff in the meadow with the, you know, the awful screaming noise and the digging, I was deep breathing and making sure that I was as calm as I could possibly be. So that was the first thing. And the other thing was where I slipped up. I messed up a little bit with this. When it was going on, I was completely focused on him. I don't think I took into account my other 2 dogs enough. Now, they were just lying in the kitchen fine, but obviously they saw it all, they were there, and they would have absorbed it all. And I think if I could have done all that all again, I would have perhaps, me and my husband were just all about humps here. And I think with hindsight, maybe one of us should have gone to my other 2 boys. I think I messed up a little bit on that. But on the whole, so the other thing is that if you don't know what to do when your dog's got a bad time, so he's all cleared up now. Last night, so that would be the 3rd night, absolutely nothing. Came down, I put puppy pads all over the floor, and they were completely clean, everything's fine. The poo he had this morning on the walk was just perfect. So absolutely fine now. If you don't know about, I've done a video called Let's Talk About Dog Poo. I know, it's a fabulous title, and I bet you're just dying to watch it. But I talk about all the different. It's nothing nice about it, but you need to know about it. And I talk about in there in massive detail what I do when a dog has got a bad stomach. So I use a thing called Procholine, and it's a Procholine, and it's it's a paste that deals with the gut bacteria, and it's absolutely brilliant. So as soon as he started being ill, I put him straight on that. You can pretty much guarantee that will clear a dog up in a couple of days, as it has. I'm going to put the video up. It will come up any minute now. Let's talk about dog poo, and watch that if you've got a dog, because I do go through it all in way too much detail, but so that you understand it all, and then what to do if your dog gets as a bad stomach. Some people say if a dog has a bad stomach to starve them for 24 hours. I completely disagree with that, completely and utterly. I just feed them normally. If they want to eat, that's fine. But yeah, so go and watch that video if if you haven't watched it, it will help you. So now we're through it all. I think we all learnt an awful lot from it. I have never seen a dog that scared ever, and Humps has learnt what he's learnt. The other thing is, and I'm going to do a separate video about this. I made up this thing called get their nose, and I use it for like if they're like puppies when they're misbehaving, puppies if they're distracted by something, any dog that's distracted and trying to get their attention. If you can get their nose, if a dog's scared, if you can get their nose, you've got them. It just basically means that because scent is by far their strongest what's the word called, senses, that if you can get their scent, you can get their brain. If you can get their nose, you can get their brain. And that's exactly what happened. And I didn't do that on purpose. It wasn't planned. But me going down and putting the toast in line with his nose, not intentionally, but it snapped him right back into where he was. So he was back with me eating my breakfast just like every other morning. It worked without it. Sometimes I think if I hadn't done that with the toast, how long would that terror have gone on for? Quite frankly, I'd have probably had a vet out by then, because I thought he was dying and I needed a vet. So thank goodness I did it, and even though it wasn't planned, it worked. It showed that get their nose technique in action to absolute perfection. And oh goodness, I'm just so grateful. So that is the biggest takeaway from this. When Humps, my darling, was in absolute terror, getting his nose with a piece of toast snapped him out of it. There's a dog barking in someone else's garden, and my dogs might bark, or they might not. I don't know. No, they're too tired. So yeah, so that is the thing to really take away from this, is try and get their nose. But it was truly awful and very shocking, and yeah, really awful. But it also, on another level, it made me I know exactly the horror. Well, no, I don't know exactly the horror at all, but I know Humps has been through a horrendous time. Don't we, darling? Yeah, we know that. We do know that. We know he's been, abuse in Korea. He experienced, we just know how bad it was from the way he behaves. And like when he first came to us, really aggressive, which now we've sorted out. But we know how awful it was. But then when you see him react in terror like that, simply because he went to toilet in the house, on a whole different level. And I could not, that day I was just almost shell shocked with it. I could not connect that, like, so he'd been to toilet in the house, he'd been ill, no big deal, I didn't care. And then he acted like someone was trying to kill him, the terror in the garden. I couldn't marry up those two behaviours at all. And so I spent the day just thinking, what has someone got to have done to him for him to react in utter terror? And that's not a very nice thought, but it's kind of made me understand. Sorry, I'm getting a bit teary here, sorry. God, you know what? I'm not a crier. I'm really not a crier, but dog abuse, one thing that gets me. But it's made me understand him on a different, deeper level, I think. And it's all right, Harry. Harry's looking at me like, why are you getting teary? It's just helped me understand him on a different level. And so that can only be a good thing. So even though it was horrendous that we've been through it, but now we've got through it and everybody's well and happy, there's a lot of good to take from it. So please don't hesitate to ask me any questions that you've got about anything to do with dogs, anything at all. This channel is purely to help dogs, so please don't ever hesitate to contact me about anything that you want to. You know where I am. Just put it in comments and on social media. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you and your dogs have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.